try to make some of my very favorite Indian food. I usually go to the restaurant to get this, but we're trying to save money this year, so I have to learn how to make my favorite dishes by myself. Tonight I'm going to be making Indian butter chicken, which is like one of my favorites, along with some red lentil dal and garlic naan. To start this recipe, I'm going to be using chicken thighs, and I'm going to be marinating these for 30 minutes before I start cooking them.
Using 2 teaspoons of garam masala. This is a typical Indian spice, and it gives it that flavor that you know when you're eating Indian food. I have 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, but I am using lime juice, and I'm just using generic brand plain yogurt, 1 cup of this. Okay, so I'm gonna actually just kind of spread this all over my chicken. For the naan bread, we're gonna start with 2 teaspoons of sugar. We're gonna add 1/4 cup. This is half a cup, but I did a 1/4. 1/4 cup of water, and then the active dry yeast. And we're gonna let this sit for about 10 minutes until it gets bubbly after I mix it together. And I'm just gonna mix this together. This is just the first part of making the naan bread. Also on the side, I'm making red lentil dhal, so I'm going to start with 1 medium to large onion. This one's already cut in half because I used the other half, but this should be enough for what I'm going to do. Okay, I'm going to set my stove to about a medium, and then I'm going to be adding some oil to my skillet for the lentils. And to make my life easier, I use the ginger paste because that way I don't have to chop ginger all the time. And so to my heated oil, I'm gonna add some ginger paste, and I'm gonna add my onions. So I'm just stirring this around with the ginger and onions, and we're gonna cook these for a few minutes. Okay, so as you can see, my yeast and water is kind of activating. It is looking good. It hasn't been quite 10 minutes yet, so I'm gonna let it keep going. And meanwhile, I've got my chicken, which has been marinated. We're gonna like brush off some of this marinade from it, and then I'm gonna start frying it up in the pan. So I've got my pan heating for the chicken. I'm gonna let this oil kind of heat up a little bit before placing my chicken in. That I'm gonna be kind of sizzling, frying up in here. If you see any large chunks of onions, I recommend going in and like trying to break them up, because for this recipe you don't want super large chunks. I could have probably even cut these onions up a little bit more, but hopefully they will cook down. Okay, so my oil is heated. Okay, so my chicken is sauteing. I'm just gonna kind of let this chicken saute up. I'm just quickly mincing up some garlic. I'm gonna be adding my minced garlic in, along with some turmeric. Next, I'm just going to dice up a tomato and add that. So I've added in my tomatoes, and then I'm going to add the lentils and some water and vegetable stock. Meanwhile, my chicken is ready to be turned over here. Now it's 1 cup of lentils. I'm gonna add in the cup of lentils, 2 cups of water, 2 3/4 cup actually. And then I use this vegetable broth seasoning. I used the other half the last time I made my lentils, and so I'm gonna use the other half now. So I'm gonna flip just a couple of these pieces over one more time, just because they didn't look all the way done. And I just wanna make sure this is cooked up well. So while I make this naan, while I start my naan, I'm gonna go ahead and just take this chicken off. Just moving my pan aside so that all those drippings stay good in my pan. And my lentils have to cook for a while. So next I'm just mincing up some garlic to go into my naan bread. Okay, so we're gonna add to this, it's all nice and fluffy. We're gonna add some garlic, 3/4 of a cup, and we're gonna add oil, 1/4 of a cup of oil, and then 4 cups of flour. Okay, so I just added salt and all the flour, and now I'm gonna mix it all up. I realized at this point that there was something wrong with my dough, and I had totally forgotten that I left the milk in the microwave because it was supposed to have warm milk in it. So at this point I'm just like looking at my dough and like desperately trying to figure out, did I add too much flour? But I was kind of freaking out, so I added more yogurt and more milk and oil, but it still turned out totally fine. Okay, so I'm turning my pan back on and I'm adding some butter, and this is gonna melt down with some onions. Okay, so for the spices, I added chili powder, turmeric, coriander, and I'm just gonna let this all cook up. I'm gonna be using some of the drippings from the pan too. So I added a cinnamon stick, some water, and I did some chicken bouillon instead of chicken broth. I just added 14 ounces of crushed tomatoes, and then I'm gonna add 1 cup of heavy cream to this. Now I'm adding 1 cup of heavy cream. So at this point I was kind of freaking out because I had so many different things going, so I had to get the help of my family to roll out my naan bread because I was just like kind of overwhelmed with all of these different dishes I had going. That's about 2 cups of rice. And we've got the naan being rolled out here. I had to get some helpers. Okay, and now I'm just frying my naan. I've got my butter chicken and my lentils finished. We're making a little bit of cilantro butter and garlic. So I just tried them and they turned out right. I was so excited. I can't believe I did it. Ah! My naan is cooking up in the pan. Taste it and see if you think it needs more cream, if it's too sour. And seriously, it all turned out so amazing. I was really happy. Just like the restaurant, I can't even believe it.